This is Warren Vanderhill interviewing Mac Warrell for the Muncie Labor Oral History Project on January 4th, 2006. Mac, I want to begin by thanking you for agreeing to participate in our project. And I'd like to begin with a sort of general question. That is, if you could tell me a little bit about how you or your family happened to come to Muncie, Indiana.
Well, basically, you know, I'm from Muncie.
Okay.
But I was born in Wayne County. But
Okay.
we moved to Muncie when I was about 2 years old or so I've been here ever since.
Okay.
So I'm really a Muncieite.
Okay. What did your dad do? What was his work life?
He was a machinist
Okay.
and had worked at Acme Lee's.
Oh, okay.
And then it folded and went south.
Okay.
So that was about it there.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about your educational background. How much formal education did you have?
I had a high school education. I graduated from Central High School in 1945.
Okay.
And then I've had some labor studies at IU and took labor law out of Ball State.
Oh, okay.
And Charlie Anderson and myself were the only two labor people in the class
Oh, okay.
when we went there, and that was quite an experience.
And you were the only ones that had any real labor experience.
Right.
The rest of them were students.
Well, students, and a lot of them were corporate people.
Oh, okay. Okay. When and where, and I assume the where would be Muncie, did you begin your working career?
It was here in Muncie. I started working when I was 12 years old,
Okay.
working in a electric motor shop and repairing and rewinding electric motors.
Okay.
And then from there I went to Broderick's as electrician. Of course, I'd worked at Glasgow and then went to Broderick's, and that was in '68.
Okay.
And was there for 20 years. And then, you know, I was chosen by labor to be labor liaison on the United Way staff.
Okay.
And was there for 28 years.
Okay.
So
Were you working for Broderick's when they closed, or?
no,
Okay.
no, I had gone from there as labor liaison with United Way
Okay.
in '68.
Okay.
And so I wasn't there when they closed.
Okay. What other kinds of jobs then did you have after that? After you did the work with United Way?
That's about it.
Okay.
So when I retired, I retired.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't done much of anything.
Okay. Tell me some about what the work was like as far as working with labor groups in Muncie when you were with United Way.
Well, that was quite an experience, and I had real good relationships, you know, with labor groups, and they accepted the fact. In fact, you know, there was quite a turmoil as far as management and labor was concerned, and United Way,
Yeah.
because it was conceived as being, which it was, being run by management.
Right.
And labor didn't have much input in it.
Okay.
And when I first went on staff and then got to working with labor and got labor more involved, and then they, you know, came through and really did a good job.
Well, tell me, you know, you're being too modest here, because a lot of people have told me of all the work you did on this, but tell me a little bit about what you actually did. I mean, what was your approach to the job? How were you able to bring management and labor together on something like United Way?
Well, you know, that's something I really don't have an answer for.
Okay, all right.
You know, I just worked with labor and explained to labor the functions of the United Way, and got them involved. And when I got them involved, well, then it was, you know, easy streets, because
okay.
they could see, you know, what was happening, what was going on,
Yeah.
and who the people were that, you know, was being helped and all.
Yeah.
And for the most part, you know, for a lot of part, you know, it was our people that were receiving help.
Okay. How long did you say you worked for United Way?
28 years.
28 years in that position. Oh, okay. Were you the first person to do that?
I was the first one.
Okay, so you started then. As far as the way that functioned, I mean, did you have specific contact then with various labor leaders in the different plants around town? Is that how you did that?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I worked mainly, you know, through the presidents
Okay.
of the plants, and working with them and getting labor involved. And I can think of one time in particular.
Yeah.
When labor this was at Delco, and labor and management were at odds with each other, and we were conducting the United Way campaign, and so they weren't going to be involved with the campaign. And I talked to them and got them turned around, and, you know, showed them where that the United Way was not a labor management program, and that we needed to work community-wise and to be involved that way. And so we got them turned around, and they participated in the campaign. But before that, they wasn't going to participate at all in the campaign.
So it was really, I guess, from a professor's standpoint, what you really were doing in the largest picture was trying to educate these people as to what the United Way was really all about, and that it was a community focus, and it wasn't really us versus them.
Right.
Okay. When did you? Well, I want to go back to the thing about Broderick's, because I interviewed Randy King, who for many years, as you know, was the president of the union out there. Mm-hmm. Were you involved in union activities at Broderick's?
I was president.
Oh, you were? Okay.
Out there for many years. It used to be, you know, we ran for office every year.
Right.
And had to run each year for election and all. And I was president out there for numerous years.
Okay.
And I was president when I went with United Way.
Okay.
And
so Broderick's was where you got involved first in union activities.
Yeah.
So you were a member of, what union were you a member of?
Steelworkers.
Okay. What was the relationship between labor and management like at Broderick's?
Well, you'd have to remember the times then, and the relationship was fairly good, except, you know, at contract time. And you know, when we were in contract one time out there, Howard Wolf fired me 3 times in 1 week. So
who was this, Howard Wolf?
Howard Wolf was the brother-in-law to Joe Broderick.
Oh, okay.
I think it was brother-in-law.
Yeah, okay.
To Joe Broderick, and
Yeah.
he was running the plant, you know, at the time and all.
Yeah. So at contract times, things could get pretty tense, but otherwise, you think the relationship between labor and management out there was pretty good.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about when you were union president out there. What kind of work did you do for the union?
Well, you know, basically you just oversee the labor people and to try to take care of their wants and needs,
Okay.
And you know, that can involve a lot of things. And you work quite a bit in grievance procedures and everything when someone has a grievance, and then you work to get that resolved and all. And so, and I was once told by the superintendent there on the press side that he would much rather work with labor unions than without, because it made things a lot smoother as far as the relationships were concerned, and didn't have everybody coming to him for different things that, you know, they need to go through the union. And,
well, I guess the one reason I'm pressing you a little bit on the question is that knowing a bit about the history of Broderick's now, that Broderick's is seen by a lot of people as being a really tough union place because they had a lot of strikes, they had a lot of wildcatting. I mean, is that a fair picture of Broderick's?
well, in the early years, no.
Okay.
In the early years, well, you know, they wouldn't strike for what they wanted and what they needed. I mean, they had a lot of people that were not financially well off and everything, and of course they never made a lot of money and all there, and you know, they couldn't stay out for too long. I remember one time we were out for 3 days and went back in for a penny less than what they went out for.
Oh, okay. When you talk about the contracts that you were involved in negotiating out there, is it fair to say that wage issues were the most important, or was it more fringe benefits, or is it a combination of the two?
It was a combination of the two, but the wage benefits were the main issues and everything.
Okay. Since you worked for United Way, you know a lot about the different unions in town. Was Broderick's looked upon as being a fairly well-paying place, say, compared to the UAW?
No.
Okay.
No.
It was quite a bit less than UAW?
Right.
But so the UAW jobs were the best-paying jobs?
Right. Right. And, you know, Warner Gear in particular.
Yeah. Yeah. When I interviewed Cordell Campbell, and he told me that he thought that during the time he was at Warner Gear before he went on the police force, that Warner Gear was by far the best paying job of all the labor positions in Muncie. When you think of Muncie as a community in the years that you've been here, how would you describe the relationship between management and labor? Now, this is not a United Way question. It's just you as a United Way staffer looking at the bigger picture of Muncie. Because what I'm really trying to get at is whether or not you feel, from your perspective, that the relationship between management and labor changed over time during your career.
Well, I think it did. I can remember going out to Warner Gear at the time and talking to the people out there, and I was never in a more adversarial relationship any place as what there was there. I mean, labor and management were just at loggerheads all the time. In fact, when I went on staff at United Way, one of the guys from Borg Warner that was on the board for United Way resigned from the board because they didn't want labor, you know, represented on staff. So they were really, you know, I said to myself, I could never work in a place like this where they're constantly, you know, at loggerheads with each other.
And was that atypical, or was that just?
No.
I mean, that Warner Gear was an unusual situation.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And in some of the other places like Chevrolet that you found better.
Chevrolet and Delco and
yeah.
the others, yeah, much better relationships.
Well, you started saying that it's changed over time, so this is a hard question, I know, but do you think relationships today between management and labor in Muncie are better than they were, let's say, I don't know, 20, 25 years ago?
You know, I think they're getting worse.
You do? Okay, I want you to talk about that. I guess it's an important story.
Because, let's face it, you know, labor has lost its clout.
Right, okay.
And it's one of those situations where management's taking advantage of it.
Okay.
And they're coming in, you know, for wage reductions and everything, and that's not setting well with the people.
Right.
And, you know, I can understand that if they come along and want you to take a wage cut instead of increase, why, and cost of living and everything keeps going up the way it is.
To say nothing of a cut in your health benefits.
Right. And, you know, all the cuts and everything that are going on, I think it's the relationship is worsening. And especially, you know, when the management people are still getting their perks and not being touched with any of that at all.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. As you look back on your career of working with labor groups in particular, what do you think that unions have done for the worker?
Oh, without a doubt, you know, it has given them, you know, a voice and given them a lot of say so, and you know what happens and how things are done, and has increased their living tremendously. And of course, in doing that, you know, with the labor people, it's increased the rest of the community too. So.
Okay. As you look back on your union career, those are obviously some of the major advantages of unions. Are there any disadvantages of unions?
Oh, of course. There. Well, I can give you a good example. It's like when George Maney and Walter Reuther were at odds with each other and caused a split from the UAW and the AFL-CIO.
Right.
And it just, you know, pulled UAW completely out of the AFL-CIO, which was detrimental, really, and it was a personality conflict between Reuther and Maney.
Yeah.
And, you know, that did labor no good.
Yeah, but, you know, I'm an American historian, but isn't it fair to say that one of the things that the union movement lacks in America today would be leaders of the caliber of people like Walter Reuther, John L. Lewis, George Maney? As you look at the leadership of the American union movement today, how do you see it compared to some of the giants of the American union movement?
Well, of course, you don't have the people like the George Maneys and Walter Reuthers and all that you had back then, because times were different then, and they came through rough times and rough periods. And today, you know, I think labor has had it so good that they forgot where they come from.
Okay, that's a good point.
And so, and you know, they've forgotten how they achieved what they have today. And a lot of people think, you know, it's just handed to them, and that's not the case.
Well, I mean, the statement's often made to me that that was a period when people knew what it was like to lay it on the line to get the gains in wages, fringe benefits, and such, pensions for union workers, and then you've gone through a generation where people took all that stuff for granted.
Right.
And they thought, well, that's the way it always was, and that's the way it's always going
Right.
to be. And you know it's not the way it's going to be.
No. And you can see it today when, you know, they're coming along and wanting the wage cuts and the benefits taken away and, you know, like they're doing. And, you know, one of the worst things was on the pension program and everything, when the government allowed the companies to underfund the pensions the way they did.
Right.
And now we're paying for it through, you know, the Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation having to pick up the slack where the money was not put there like it should have been in the first place.
Can I ask you where your pension is from?
My pension?
Yeah.
Well, I got a small pension from Broderick's.
Okay. Yeah.
And then we had a pension program. In fact, you know, when I went to United Way, they didn't have a pension program. They didn't have an insurance program. They had no benefits like that whatsoever, because most of the people working with United Way at that time were women who had husbands that were working that had all these benefits and were covered, and they didn't need it, so they didn't seek the benefits.
Yeah. But that changed while you were there.
Yeah. Yes, in fact, I started a insurance program where getting them, you know, insurance and being covered for health insurance when they had no health insurance. Now, it was all right for the ones that were, you know, had husbands that were working in plants that was covered by insurance, but there were a lot of them that, you know, had nothing. And so,
well, that staff's changed now. You know,
oh yeah.
Now you've got males working down there.
Yeah.
And people who come from outside of town to be executive directors. And,
oh yeah, right.
And stuff like that. I want to ask you some about, as you look at it both from Broderick's and probably more importantly from your position with United Way, what role do you think that race played in union activities in Muncie? Do you think that was an important issue with African Americans in particular?
Well, I think, you know, it played the, you know, the same way as it did, you know, in the community as a whole. Like, you know, I can remember being at Broderick's when we were negotiating contracts, and we had the people on the negotiating committee and everything that were blacks and everything, and when we would break for lunch, why, you know, we couldn't go out into the community anywhere and have lunch together and everything. We had to go to the black community to have lunch.
Yeah.
If we were going to, you know, have lunch together. And so those things, you know, completely changed around that way. But, you know, I still think there are a lot of the undertones and everything of the racial situation.
Yeah. Did African Americans start to play leadership positions in union activities during your time with either, you know, both Broderick's and United Way?
I think so. Because you know, when we were there, a lot of the people were not, you know, so involved with the unions and everything, and then they got to see that, you know, it was for their benefit and everything to become involved and everything, and started becoming involved. Sheba.
That's background noise.
Yeah.
The next question sort of follows logically on that one, and that is one of the problems, I'll tell you, I'm having with this study, and that is, what about the role of women in leadership positions in unions in Muncie? I'm having a great deal of difficulty finding women who play leadership positions in unions.
Well, yeah, because there wasn't too many women, involved in employment. In fact, you talk about Rosie the Riveter.
Yeah.
That's true and everything.
Yeah.
When the World War II broke out,
Yeah.
and the men went to war, and then the women moved into the
Right.
factories and everything, and that's when they were becoming more involved in things. Before that, it was almost non-existent.
Yeah.
It was, the women really took the forefront in the plants and the work and everything, while
Yeah.
everybody else was off to war.
So you actually experienced or observed then that when the men came back, go on, talk to the dog.
Sheba. I don't know if she started that
Oh.
here in the last few weeks and everything, barking that way around this time, and I don't know why. I don't know what's...
Well, what I was saying then, you observed then that when all these Rosie the Riveters were in the plants, the men came back after the war, then the Rosie the Riveters were out of the plants, and the men got the jobs back.
Now, if you want to talk to a good one, I don't know if you've got Ruby Devers
I don't.
on your list, and she was involved, has been involved, throughout the years and everything with labor.
Okay.
And
Is that D-E-A-V-E-R-S?
D-E-E. D-E-V-E-R-S.
Two E's?
No, just one.
D-E-V-E-R-S.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll
Ruby.
talk more about that.
And she lives on West Power.
Well, I got some others I want to talk to you about, too. Okay, my last formal question I have is when I came to Muncie to work at Ball State in the late 1960s, Muncie was described to me by someone out of town as, well, Muncie, that's a really tough union town. Do you think that was true then, and is it true now?
Well, I suppose it was to a certain extent and everything that labor kind of stood up, for its rights and everything. But then I can see my year, at Broadridge when, it wasn't such a tough union thing that you had labor, and you had people getting involved in labor and all, and more.
Yeah. So you think it's fair to the picture that someone painted for me then in the late 60s, early 70s, I guess, was more that workers in Muncie are tough and they're willing to really stand up to management to try to get what they think is their fair share, and that now, as we're in the 21st century, for a variety of reasons, that isn't really true anymore.
No, you're right. And one of the reasons why it isn't true anymore is because conditions and times and labor laws and things have changed so much that so much of the bargaining power of labor has been stripped away.
As you look back from your perspective of being involved with unions for such a long period of time, and I'm just asking you to speculate on this, I mean, do you think that period that you lived through, where a worker in a good union could live a middle-class life in American society, and now you take somebody who graduates from high school and at that point in your life wanted to go on the line or something like that and make a good living, now the alternatives they have are go work for Walmart or something like that. Do you think that the way of life that you experienced is ever going to come back?
No.
Why?
No,
Why?
I don't, because we've moved to a service trade more than a manufacturing trade, and we've basically lost or losing, the manufacturing base
Right.
in shipping it overseas
Yeah.
and all, and I don't see it coming back, and I think that's a sad era too, because when World War II broke out, we were in a manufacturing base and were able to put things together and manufacture products and everything for the war and all right here that we couldn't do today.
Right. Yeah.
And we'd have to rely on other countries, and that is just not going to work in my estimation. And of course, the wars and things are being fought differently than what they were then too.
Sure. Yeah. I didn't ask you. Were you in the service?
Yes.
Okay. What was your experience there?
I was in the Navy.
Okay.
That I only spent a short time, and got a medical discharge with my knees.
Uh-huh.
And
This is what, right at the end of World War II?
right.
Right. Did you go overseas?
No, I never got out of Chicago.
Well, you're at Great Lakes?
Right.
Oh.
Uh-huh.
Huh. But that still gave you the status of being a veteran, though.
Right. Right. Well, in fact, I just got qualified, for veterans under this, Medicare Part D program.
Yeah, right.
And trying to understand that and all, and
Yeah.
so I finally got qualified with the veterans to have
So you have both Part D and
insurance. No, I don't have to have Part D.
because you have veterans.
Right.
Yeah, like I still have Ball State, so I don't need to have Part D.
Right.
Thank God.
Oh God, yes.
I was going to say, I feel so sorry for my fellow retirees who had to go through that and try and figure out one of the, I think it's a great benefit, but the way Bush set it up is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen.
Right.
Well, those are all the formal questions I have. I've got one last one, really, that goes back to Broderick's, and that is, I'd like you to tell me a little bit about how you saw the Steelworkers Union compared to, say, some of the other unions at that time. Do you think it's well-run, good union, good for the worker, or what's your perspective on that?
Oh yeah. Of course, the steelworkers, back then were noted as being a tough union.
Yeah, right. That's the very word I was going to use.
And I couldn't come up with any other.
No, that's true.
In fact, with Queen Elizabeth, wanted to meet with some of the steel workers and everything because of the relationship, that they had, and being tough that way. And in fact, it was the steel workers that came out with the pension program.
Okay.
And they were on strike, I think, for 13 weeks and everything, getting a pension program, and that was the beginning of the pensions with labor.
Right.
And so, I think they were good. They were tough. The infighting. I mean, you take the infighting in the political arena here in Muncie and everything, it doesn't compare to the infighting and everything that you had, within the unions.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And all then.
Yeah.
And in fact, I remember when David J. McDonald was president of the Steelworkers, Don O'Reilly from Pennsylvania ran against him. And
is that Donna? That's woman?
no,
Oh, Donald or Donna?
Don
Don Rarick.
Rarick.
Oh, okay. R-A-R-I-C-K.
Right.
Okay, Don Rarick.
Ran against him, and we were in Atlantic City at the convention for the election and everything. And it was tough. I mean, I actually saw in the convention center of some of David J. McDonald's men beating up Rarick in the convention center. And that, that to me was uncalled for.
Yeah.
And in fact, later, David J. McDonald said, he stole the election for the steelworkers there.
It's incredible.
Right.
Well, as I said, those are all the formal questions I have, but at the end of all these interviews, I give the person I'm interviewing a chance to add any final comments for history or any other reflections you'd like to make on your long and distinguished career working with labor groups in Muncie. So I'll give you a chance to add anything you might want about how you see labor unions right now and what the future might hold.
Well, I know when I was involved with unions and all, that it wasn't a popular thing then as far as the community was concerned.
Right.
Because the community kind of looked down on labor people. And all they were trying to do was stand up for their own rights and get a better living for themselves, thus, bring the rest of the community with them.
Right.
But a lot of the people just that weren't involved didn't understand the process and what was happening, and they kind of, turned their nose down on the labor people. And that has changed quite a bit, and especially this day and age when they see how the management people, and I'm not trying to knock management in general and everything, but they see how their living is going on and increasing with their purse and things of this nature, and how they're attacking labor, because labor doesn't have the power that it used to have.
Right. Yeah.
And
having been around politics, whether it's here or at the national level with the steelworkers, that power is power.
Right.
And unless you've got the clout and can deliver the votes in the election, people don't pay much attention to you.
That's right. That's right. And if you don't have the clout, like you say, people are not going to pay any attention to you.
Yeah.
And right now, we don't have the clout.
Yeah. I mean, so you see that as probably the most significant change that's hurt labor in the last, say, 20, 25 years.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think this NAFTA and the other programs and everything, where a company can go overseas, make their product, and bring it back, and not pay the tariffs and things, and get the cheap labor, and sooner or later, it's going to come back to them. That they're.
So it sounds like the old cliche, the chicken's coming home to roost.
Right, and that's exactly. I think it will one of these days, because there's only so much service industry that you can maintain, and sooner or later you're going to have.
I couldn't agree more. Well, I want to thank you very much for agreeing to participate in the project.
Well, I thank you, and I thank you for taking the project on, because I can remember when labor tried to get labor studies at Ball State, and Ball State wouldn't accept it, and we had to go to IU, and now IU's got a really good program,
Yeah.
and it could have been right here at Ball State had Ball State accepted it, but then that, wasn't in the cards.
Well, I agree with you. I think probably today Ball State as a university having a much greater vision would be more accepting, more amenable to doing that. But I think then what you're talking about, they were still coming out of their teachers' college roots and not thinking of themselves in a broader university-wide way.
Right, and we tried to get, in fact, we bought books, labor books and everything to put in the schools and at Ball State and all, and weren't accepted.
Huh. Well, the good news is I can't speak for the Muncie Community Schools, but at Ball State we're hoping to build up a labor archive as a result of this study and some other things we're doing. So I guarantee you it'll be more out there than has been true in the past.
Well, I hope so, because like I say, when I went to Ball State and took labor law, there was only 2 of us in the class, and at that time, and labor people, that is.
Right. Yeah.
And the rest of them were, high management people and a few students.
Right.
And all, that was taking a class.
Do you remember who taught that class?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Yeah, 'cause I can't
That's been so many years
ago.
Yeah, there's been too much water over the dam. But
yeah, that's true.
in fact, I, having those senior moments anymore. So
I know what those are like.
I hardly remember my own name.
Yeah.
But there was another one, Charles Anderson. He was one of them. He was the other labor, and he was president of Ball, Local 93 Glass Workers.
Oh, okay.
At the time, everything when we went.
Oh, he took that course?
Yeah,
Oh,
he took the course.
And were you with United Way or Broderick's then?
Oh, I was at Broderick's then.
Okay, so you had one person from Broderick's and one person from Wall Brothers?
And
I wish I taught that class.
we weren't accepted too well.
That would have been a fun class to teach. Well, thanks again for taking your time to help me out with my study.
No, I thank you, and I commend you for doing the study and doing the work, because it's been long overdue.
Yeah, I know that this has been kind of a dream of Hurley's and yours and a lot of other people to get the Community Foundation, which has funded the study. So I'm happy that they were willing to do this, and I'm really looking forward to working on the rest of it. Thanks again.
Thank you.